Welcome to Ready Set RC, and today we have the Losi Promoto MX. Yeah, that's not the Promoto MX. It's not even the same size. It's not even a dirt bike. It's a street bike. And it's all beat up and ratty looking. It's not the same thing. What are you trying to do? Bait and switch? What is this? Welcome to Ready Set RC, and today we got the Losi Promoto MX. This has got to be, in my recollection, I'm trying to remember since I've been into the hobby, this has got to be, from what I can remember, one of the hottest RCs out for 2023. I posed a question back up a couple weeks ago, and one of the viewers had said the 1/5 scale HPI Baja kind of had the same fanfare when that was released. I do remember that, and that was pretty hot when that came out too as well. But with everything going on in the height of social media now, this is just pumped up, guys. And we're gonna see, is this thing really worth all that hype that is out there? I know a lot of videos have been talking about this. A lot of videos have been, singing its praises, but I like to see it for myself if that's the case. I'm a big fan of RC motorcycles. As you guys saw in the intro, I have a DXR500, and that is a Duratrax motorcycle. There was other iterations of that prior to that one, and I think there have been other RC motorcycles out there since then and before this. I don't know if they have the technology or perform as well as this. My gripes that I've always had with RC motorcycles is that they get a little wobbly very easily. You hit a stone, you hit a pothole, you hit a rock, whatever it is, it gets very wobbly very easily, and then it will fall over, and they're just a little bit more finesse when it comes to being able to control it. I'm not saying that this won't be, but I like what I've seen from the Losi promo videos of how this thing performs, how it stays upright. The wheelies are controlled. I'm not saying that the other RCs that I've had in the past aren't able to do wheelies, but the control that I've seen this one do it and the ease that I've seen this one do it is amazing. But we're gonna do a quick unboxing, a little bit of an overview of the Promoto MX. I'm going to show you this alongside my Duratrax. I did have one minor build quality issue with mine, and I'll speak about that too in the video. Let's get this thing going of the Losi Promoto MX. So you guys know what's happening. I reached out to Horizon Hobby to find out what exactly that was. Because in the manual, you couldn't tell if it was possibly the shocks that were leaking or not. And they stepped up. They did right. They had sent me these parts thinking that it was possibly the shocks. And it also provided me some silicone diff fluid. But it looks like I may have gotten a Thursday car. And they just overlubed, guys. Look at this thing. Somebody went a little nutso on the lube. And let me know if you guys have any that look. I looked at my local hobby shop and I looked at theirs and it didn't look like this. So you guys tell me if yours came out like this, but I've seen a lot of people's videos and not one person on their videos does it look like that. So maybe I got a Thursday car. I'm gonna clean it up, put it back together. The other thing I noticed, they went a little nutso on the Loctite. Hopefully you guys can see that on the camera. It's not coming up in focus, but hopefully you guys can see that on the camera. They went a little nutso on the Loctite too. And yeah, I'm not, I'm just gonna clean this up, put it back together. I don't think there's anything wrong with it other than there is just way too much going on right there. Somebody went a little nutso. But we're gonna tighten it up and then we're gonna continue back with the video. Now we have the bike all buttoned up. This bike comes in a few different flavors. So You have the red one that you have here now. There's also a blue one that comes just like this bike, and these two do not come with the LiPo pack for the actual bike itself. The blue and the red one go for $549.99, basically $550 US. And then there is a version that is for $599.99, pretty much $600 US, which comes in green. And that one comes with the LiPo battery for the RC and the charger for that LiPo battery. I think I got a Thursday model. I'm looking at some of the stickers and those two are not properly fixed onto the RC, so I definitely feel this is a Thursday model. Maybe not a Friday model, but definitely a Thursday model. So once I start running this, I'll really get a feel of it, see if everything feels right on it. They provide you with some chain lube. It is self-explanatory. It's lubrication for the chain. They also provide you with some tools to work on the RC, and then you see these spikes. And these spikes are for this launch stand to mount it into the ground to be able to launch this off. You don't necessarily need the stand every time that you're using it, but if you guys are doing races, it's kind of cool to have all the bikes lined up and have them launch off for the race. You get a battery foam, and these are the chain tensioners to allow you to adjust the tension on the chain. They are composite. The ones that are on the motorcycle right now, they are also composite. They did come out with an optional part, and I'll show that on the screen, that these are now, they have aluminum ones as an optional part for it. I did pre-order those. Who knows when I'll get them, because right now the shipping at the time of this video at Horizon Hobby is dismal. So we'll see how that happens. You know, things are shipping and I'm not even getting proper notification that it's shipped. So we'll see if I'll get it, if I don't get it, or whenever that'll happen. But whenever it does, I'll put it up on the community post for the channel. They also provide you with 4 AA's for the controller. Looks like they also provide you with a QR code to allow you to see the video of Promoto MX. Unless you're living under a rock, you've seen probably 1,000,001 videos of this RC at this point, from Losi themselves, Horizon Hobby, influencers, non-influencers, basically everyone who's gotten this RC, including me, in their hands is putting videos out on this. So that's good. You're seeing an RC, at least for this price point, where you're getting a whole bunch of different opinions and aspects from it to allow you to make a better decision if you want to purchase this motorcycle. And then lastly, you get the owner's manual, a promotional code for the Super Moto tires from Proline. It looks like you also get an upgrade QR code, a support QR code, and some additional decals. The one thing that Losi is not skimping on is everything that they're trying to push out for this RC. There are so many upgrade parts already available and coming out for this RC from the launch. As you guys can see, I have already gotten my Supermoto rear tire. I'm not gonna put this on until I get the front. And then lastly, here we are with the DX3 controller. This one is slightly different than your normal DX3, and hopefully you guys are able to pick that up. This one has the motorcycle stability control right at your fingertips. This one also allows you to turn on and off the flywheel. And I'll go through some of that here. You have the steering, normal and reverse, flywheel off and on, the throttle limit for 50, 75, and 100. You get the battery level indicator over here on the left. Then you have your trims all lined up over here. Your bind button, throttle, and steering. And the steering has pretty much the same wheel that we see on the bike, just not chromed out. And I want to show you guys too, on the controller, this is the switch, the third toggle switch on the controller. This is where you're going to change the modes from dirt to street to wheelie, and our on-off switch on the back side over here. 4 AA's that they provided will go down below. And they also have a lanyard mount right here. If you guys have not used the DX3 before, feels really good in the hands, capable of one-handed driving, very stable and I like this controller. Now, if you do get the telemetry piece to this, and this is one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, you can put the telemetry Bluetooth module here, and then there's a phone mount that you can mount to the top of this, and that'll allow you to see the telemetry of your bike real time through your phone. Now, for those of you that own a DX5C or any of the DX5 Pro controller, you are going to be able to bind those controllers up to this motorcycle. That is another option that you can do to it. So you do not need to use a DX3. You will be able to use your DX5C and your DX5 Pros with this. But let's quickly go over the Promoto MX. As I mentioned before, guys, I got a lot I want to pile into this video. I really do want to do a comparison between this and one of my existing RC motorcycles, a 5th scale, so you guys can see the difference of where the technology has come between today and what it was in the past for us people who have owned RC motorcycles. Now I'm going to bring the motorcycle up close. This is a fully licensed FXR motorcycle, and let's get this off. And it's got some weight and girth to it, guys. I mean, the rider, if you're familiar with the other motorcycles that are out there, this rider is not foam per se. It's hollow in the inside, feels more rubberized with air inside. That's what it feels like. It doesn't feel like the foam rider we're used to with our other motorcycles. He does have a uniform on, and that's one of the cool things that I like. I mean, people say that the uniform is pretty much a protection for the rider, and I'll have to agree with that. It looks like it's nicely fixed. This rider comes in 2 different pieces. You have the top part that is held on with a bobby pin right here by the waist, and then you have the bottom portion of the rider. And then there are foot stands, and also the foot stands are another optional part that they're going to be providing, metal foot stands for this RC. It's another one of the parts that I saw that was out there. And then the rest of this is a metal chassis. I don't know if you guys are able to see that right here. Twin vertical plate. It's a metal chassis, and those vertical plates are 3 millimeters thick with a composite overlay to it. So everything else, meaning this part here that my thumb is on, is all composite, but you have a metal chassis underneath that. And then over here is also composite. Right here, this is also a composite piece as well. These guides, they are flexible. Most motorcycles you're gonna find, these are usually fixed, but this one tends to have a little flex to it, a little give. These wheels are composite. I'm hearing that servo moving around in there. Tires have a nice foam to them. They're not hollow. You have a brake system up in the front. This RC comes with licensed off-road Dunlop tires. As for the chain, and I mentioned before, there's a tension adjustment to the chain, and that's going to be right here. Right now, they pile you with a bunch of composite pills. I'm going to call them pills because that's what I'm kind of familiar with it from the nitro and gas world. They have these pills that you pop in here, and these pills allow you to either tighten the tension of the chain. Kind of wish that they made this aluminum from the jump, or at least sent out the aluminums to them, because this is something that I've noticed on other videos. It's now starting to be the weak point. You have a chain guard down below, and then what I mentioned before with the shock in the rear, there is an adjustable shock right here in the rear, and you can adjust the tension depending on the ride height of the motorcycle or the different terrain that you're running the motorcycle on. All of these body panels are removable, so they have optional parts where these body panels, if you want to change them all out to different colors. The uniform, as I mentioned too, this is removable. There are right now, I believe, 4 different uniforms you can get. The one you're seeing here now, a blue one, a green one, and then there's a black one available for the rider. So Losi is coming out swinging with this RC. Now this motorcycle is equipped with 2 ESCs. There's an ESC that controls the speed of the motorcycle, and then there's an ESC that's going to control the gyro on the motorcycle. As for the electronics that are on this, I have a 6-channel receiver, a steering, the S620 PM metal geared servo, Spectrum SX108 PM micro servo, and that is for the front brakes. The motor that's in this RC is a Spectrum Firma 3652 3800 kV 4-pole brushless motor. The motor is a 540 can size. And the electronic speed control, the Firma 85A brushless ESC. Now, the second ESC that I mentioned before, it's integrated with the flywheel. This RC has a slipper clutch assembly with a 50-tooth spur gear. Pinion that comes on the RC is 20-tooth, and the gearing in this is 32 pitch. Now, I'm not going to tear the bike down because I think there's a ton of videos that already do that. They take all the pieces off, show you what's going on underneath, but there's a pinion that drives not only the chain, but then there's a pinion that drives the spur gear that's over here on this side. And that's what really is adjustable on the motorcycle, is that you have a pinion that you can go bigger on if you want to get more of those speeds out of the stock electronics on this. Now, they do not recommend the gyro to be ran on 3S, but there are ways to finagle that around, and I think Earl Moorhead has done an amazing job of really going through step by step of what you are capable of doing with this platform. You have a dirt mode, a street mode, and a wheelie mode. And if you guys have been, unless you guys have been under a rock, you've seen every channel displaying the differences between the three. So with the dirt mode, self-explanatory, it's for when you're riding off roads, uneven pavements, things in that nature. Talking about the street mode, that's more for your tarmacs, your asphalts, concrete, that, basically smooth surfaces. That's what that's for. And then your wheelie mode, which seems like to me one of the most coolest modes out there. The wheelie mode, which lets you hold a wheelie on the RC and control the wheelie. And that's very cool, because normally what you'd get in a typical RC motorcycle is that you'll hit the wheelie, the bike will flip all the way back and then land on its side, and it's over. Go do the walk of shame, go get that RC, stand it upright, push it off, and go again. This one, it controls the wheelie. The wheelie does not just pop up and get all crazy. It actually holds it, and that's something surprising that I'm able to see them able to do that with the technology that I'm seeing on this bike. Now, the battery I'm going to use is a Z pack. It's a 6500 mAh 120C 2S pack. I've already tried it in the RC and it fits pretty well. The balance lead is the only thing that I'll have to play with to try to get it in there, and I'll show you guys how that fits in. I'm going to go ahead, remove the pin, drop that battery tray down. Put the battery in all the way up. The only way that I saw is I'm gonna have to keep the balance lead out because I don't want to stress the wires to it. And then I'm able to push the body pin in and lock it into place. For the connectors from the battery, these are EC5s, so it's EC5 into IC5. Put that right in. And there we are. Perfect. As I said, the balance lead is hanging out right there. I don't think that's going to be a problem. It's not exposed. You have the exhaust right here also protecting it. I think it's fine, guys. I think it's fine the way it is right now. The only thing that I'm probably concerned about, these battery leads are so long that if you have full compression, it's going to rub against the battery cables. That's the only thing that I'm seeing here that I'm probably a little bit concerned about, is that that's there. We'll have to see how that operates after the first couple times I'm running this, but that's my main concern, the tires rubbing against those battery leads right there. If you want to use battery packs that are outside of the Spectrum world, you can, but you're just going to have to be a little bit creative when it comes down to the battery leads, or when it comes down to the balance plug for your pack, because that's where I think it's going to be the challenging fitting this into. I wouldn't recommend using adapters because that's just another thing that's hanging out of the RC. Try to go with EC5s or IC5 connectors for this bike. But enough of the Promoto MX. Let's go ahead and get the other RC motorcycle that I have to compare this to. Sorry folks, if the Promoto MX head is getting chopped off. That just goes to show you how large the Promoto MX is to my Durtrax DXR500. Now this RC I had, I think going back to 2014 is when I purchased it. This you're probably seeing in a bunch of different flavors, guys. This was originally an Anderson Racing RC motorcycle. It then was the Duratrax that you're seeing today. And then lastly, it was a HobbyKing, I don't know what they called it, but it was a HobbyKing motorcycle. I also have the HobbyKing version of this as well, but it's gone through multiple different iterations at this point. And to me, this is probably one of the best street bikes on the market at its time. This is no longer available. You cannot get this bike anymore. Even HobbyKing is no longer selling their version of this bike. So it's not obtainable. I don't know of anyone else that's selling this bike that you'll be able to get it from. But this is considered 1/5 scale, and you guys are seeing how much difference in size this is to the Promoto X, which is considered 1/4 scale. Technology about it, and let me just go through that really quick. As I mentioned before, you have the shocks in the front, shocks in the rear, the chain, just like before with the Promoto MX, and the stabilizers, which are fixed. These are not bendable. You cannot bend or move these stabilizers. They are fixed. The rider actually does not even have, he's not even locked into handlebars. They're just, his hands free-wheeled right up there like that. There's no stabilization going in on the motorcycle. So it's just the downward motion, that's it. Capabilities of the front tire and how it collapses. I'm just gonna give it a little force. And that's not new. I've seen that on other motorcycles before. The travel is something that I would say is a lot, because I've never seen one travel in that sense. And then the other piece of it too is not only does it collapse down, and this is something that I normally have not seen on motorcycles before, it then retracts in. And that's not typical for most RC motorcycles. You'll see that it collapses down, but the fact that it retracts in and accepts much more of that load as it's coming in is pretty good. Battery compartment is down below here, and you're seeing all the scrapes and everything that happens when, and that's what happens when the motorcycle leans. This is what gets really scraped up on the motorcycle for the most part. You're seeing what they did in regards to the chain guard, more streamlined, goes along with the bike. I'm not sure if that's something that Losi can eventually do, but you're not seeing any scrapes on here. And this motorcycle really leans over. I mean, that's what happens when it leans over. And I can't recall ever really scraping this chain guard. I've never had to adjust the tension of this chain, and for the most part, it's fairly durable. I mean, I've had some bad wrecks with it where the mounts to the shell have broken, but the bike itself has held up pretty well. No real issues there. The other thing that I have that's had is like this fender has bent down and it will tend to rub into the tire, and that has happened too in the past. But this is brushless. This is 2S capable as well. I will take this out so you guys can see the differences of how that rides versus this. But this is the technology that we had before, guys, so that you guys get a good idea. And this is the pegs for the feet that were right there, and the rider always falls off those pegs. But this is the technology. The flywheel or the gyro was incorporated in the rear. What would tend to happen with this is it would wobble as it comes up. There's no stability control in the front, and maybe that would have helped it out a bit. Maybe what I can do is put AVC on this motorcycle, but I'd have to see if the servo is metal geared, and if it is, then I can do it. But what I can do is let you guys see what this would look like with AVC on it and see if that improves how this motorcycle performs. Now, you probably can find this on secondary markets. I'm not too sure, but this is what everyone is hoping Losi will come out with next, is a kind of like a speed racing motorcycle at some point. I'm hoping for it. I just wish that, you know, even if it's this big, because this is quite a good size for a motorcycle. It's, you guys looking at it, it probably looks like more like 1/8, and I probably would agree with that too as well, even though they're calling it 1/5. But yeah, compared to the Losi, it looks truly like a 1/8 motorcycle. It does look like that. It does look like that. This is what I was telling you happens with the rear, since there is no skid plate or anything like that. And I tried to make it look a little bit better by shaving off the rear here for the video so you guys can see that. But yeah, it gets a little chewed up, especially from this action hitting up, and that happens quite a bit. You get this action and, you know, that's what happens to it. It gets torn up. What's really good, and I'll bring that up in close, is that breakaway with a skid plate back here. That is something that you do not see on motorcycles. The rider itself, it is foam. It is not rubber. It is not hollow. So it takes a good beating. As you guys can see some of the scrapes that I've had up here at the top. Yeah, not much more to say about this. Yeah, this bike is completely composite. The spur gear is exposed. You can see the shock here in the rear. This, hopefully the camera's picking that up. It is screw down adjustable. I have not had any need to adjust it because I only ride this on road, so there was no need for me to adjust that whatsoever. This also has a pinion to swap out on it, and then a separate pinion for the chain. Hardware on this is all Phillips, it's not Hex. So now I want to talk about probably the biggest part of the technology going into this bike. I mean, a lot of this I've seen before. The fork I've seen before. The braking in the front is kind of new to me. I'm used to seeing the braking being done all in the rear based off of the ESC, and then with the flywheel. And that's the part I wanted to talk about. The flywheel also being integrated into the rear. Now, the problem that you run into with a lot of the older bikes is that with the flywheel integrated into the rear, which is acting as your gyro for your RC, the RC would do this fishing thing and struggle with the front to get back and get correct to go straight. I like what Losi did with this and incorporated the flywheel in the center of the bike. And this is perfect, guys, because with the flywheel at the center, it's just giving a lot more stability to this, that the rear is just acting as a driver for the motorcycle and not the gyro and the driver for the motorcycle. This was great in how they came up with this technology, and I can't wait to get this thing out and see how it performs, because just knowing how the old ones perform with that, this is something special. Yeah, it's a very good bike, guys. It's a very good bike, but based on the technology that I see with the Losi, this is night and day compared to what we were used to back in the day. And I'm happy to see Losi taking the plunge and making a pretty good motorcycle for us. These tires, street tires, and just to get an idea of the size, yeah, it's ridiculous, guys. It's ridiculous on how large the Promoto MX is. But what's next for the Promoto MX? We're gonna get this thing out, put it in some dirt. As I mentioned before, I'm gonna try to get this motorcycle out and the DXR out. I'm not sure if I'm gonna put it all in the same video or I'm gonna separate them from two different videos, but I'm gonna get the two out, let you guys see how they both perform so you can see what the old technology performs like and then what the new looks like. And you guys can see for yourself, for those of you that have been a little bit leery in making the plunge because you're thinking that This is no more different than the old motorcycle that you've been used to, and you guys can get an idea as to how much this has evolved the technology in RC when it comes down to motorcycles and maybe everything that we do going forward. But we're gonna leave it here. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram for the latest posts of the channel. This is Ready Set RC, signing out. Thanks again, guys.